Alright guys, this is the Grand Hurrah. Or the Last Hurrah. Whatever. This is it. We're taking on Majora's Mask itself. I've pondered how to do this properly, and I think I know what I'm going to do. For those of you who know, well, you'll see in a sec what's going to happen. Once we talk to the kid sitting here, we say we'll play with him, we don't have any masks. Good guys versus bad guys. And he gives us the final mask, the Fierce Deity's mask. Now, for those who know, this mask kind of breaks open this last fight, so I don't know if I want to use it or not. And it's interesting what he says here. He says, "You're the bad guy." I've heard it mentioned before that this game is all about perspective, and this definitely is true about this part. I'm going to try to do as much as I can without the Fierce Deity's mask at first. So we'll need the arrow, probably the Great Fairy Sword, and I'll have it on the side just in case. So, the fight begins after a small cutscene. Oh, don't worry, they'll all be pitted against us. You'll see why, though. Or how, I guess I should say. They are unimportant. What is important is this guy. Slash girl, as you'll see. Spoiler alert. Alright, so the fight is on. Now, what we're supposed to do here is wait for him to attack. Or it to attack. And then shoot it on its underside, I think. With an arrow. Yeah, there that goes. And just start slicing. It gets really big knockback, though, so slicing it is pretty much going to happen just once. And sometimes it moves really fast, so hitting it on its underside is asking a bit much. But, nevertheless, we will continue to fight it. Almost kind of running out of arrows here. Hitting this thing's a chore. Yeah, as you see right now, it's not too terribly intimidating. It just kind of slides around, hoping it'll hit you. Oh, come on, that hit it, didn't it? Fine, I'm just gonna whip out this mask. Just to show how in half this mask breaks this fight. Because when you Z-target with the Fierce Deity's mask, you shoot stuff. Like... wait for him to get in a neutral position. Like that. And when he stays still, whenever that'll be, hitting it with that just pretty much brings it down right away. And then you can start going to town on it. Oh, now these get involved. That's nice. It's not too much worse. As you'll see, they're just here to annoy us by shooting stuff. But they go down with one hit. Yeah, like that. They go down with one hit, so it's not too big of a worry. Usually. I say that, now they're going to be the bane of this fight. Yeah, I usually don't even realize that these guys are still... the remains are still floating around when I fight it normally, because literally, sometimes I'll just wail on the mask, just like that. But that makes this fight no fun, in some ways. So, again, I'm going to try to be fair about it. And of course, there are transformations. This one is the most... I think peculiar is a good word. Because he just kind of runs around. It's very sporadic, it's very fast, as you can see. And a funny thing about this fight is actually that it starts doing, you know, re-dead dances when you have the masks on. Except the moonwalking. I've never seen a re-dead moonwalk. It's pretty cool, though. I'm trying to be fair and demonstrate when this thing attacks. Maybe if I don't have the mask on. And this is how you do it normally, just with arrows and start. I've heard the remarks before that it sounds like a Great Fairy, and you'll see when it dies, it kind of does. It's really just crazy is what it is. But what's interesting about this whole fight, and the reason I think that the Majora's Mask final fight is what really hits home for me as this being one of my favorites, in that these fights are, you know, funny, but at the same time they're kind of disturbing, like how crazy this thing is. Like, it's just kind of unsettling, I always thought. It's not attacking, so I can't make a case for it being a very difficult fight, and to be fair, it's not, but at least I want to show how it can be dangerous. Obviously, these pots give you magic because they expect you to use light arrows, and that is a better tactical idea. But the Great Fairy Sword usually helps just as much. Alright, are you gonna attack me or not? Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah. Usually, like, if it puts up a decent fight, it'll run right up to you and do that. While it's, you know, going fast and everything. Yeah, like that. Now it's being difficult. But now I'm gonna end its fight right now. Yeah, that was a little bit eerie. That giant scream. But now, if it was silly before, now this thing becomes terrifying. And I always thought it was very unsettling how, you'll see in a sec, it has a very high-pitched, like, banshee kind of shrieks when it attacks. And on top of that, it just looks, you know, horrifying. And this is really the only fight that becomes, you know, a reasonable challenge, even with the mask on. Because as you've seen, it jumps out of the way of your projectiles. And the whips are hard on top of that, hard to block, and when it gets closer to death, it'll become more difficult to fight, like it does different things, like this. And it can attack you while you're on the ground, so this just gets into like a festive kind of fight, you could say. I realize festive is an odd word to use, but oh hey, Beyblades. Does anybody even remember Beyblades? I barely do. But again, I always really liked this fight just because of how insane Majora's Incarnation and Wrath get. But that's its final form, and with the Fierce Deity's Mask again, it blows this fight wide open, so it really is a challenge to do it without it. It disintegrates, and now pretty much we're good for the rest of the thing. I mean, we're gonna have some cutscenes, but... There we go, the eyes are much brighter there. That's what I was talking about earlier. I got a headache! Oh man, my head! At least that's what I imagine the moon would be saying right now. A nice pretty rainbow. Unfortunately, it's not a double rainbow, oh my god, no way! Old jokes are old. Love how everybody's cheering. Yeah, we did it! We did it! We're all okay! It's like, no, I did it. And you guys were gonna run. I saved your sorry asses. And that's a really neat thing to say, Dawn of a New Day. Almost poetic is not the right word, but you know what I mean. Man, I was drinking a hell of a lot last night. I dreamt I went inside a moon and fought this weird thing that was running around. God. Remind me never to do a 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse shot before I go to the milk bar again. And this is kind of a touching scene, honestly. The whole end credits are, and I'll point it out when it happens, but there's one scene that always kind of gets to me. So yeah, poor Skull Kid. He was just kind of misunderstood. Aren't they all? Hunt! And they hit him right in the face. No. That would have been funny, but kind of, you know, undisturbing the mood at the same time. Again, as we'll see in the end credits and the cutscenes, this is a game that loves to rely heavily on your emotional investment to the characters, so when you finally, you know, feel good for the Skull Kid after he's cleansed of the evil powers, you know, it's a really good feeling. And this is actually, you know, there's not too much of note to really pay attention to, so I will take this time to say, this, if you remember way back when to the Gjorg fight, once we finished him and talked to that giant, at one point he said, that we should help his friend, and Tatl interpreted that as the last giant, but I think it can be a parallel between helping Skull Kid, because he's their friend. And that's where I think it all kind of comes full circle, in a way. Very subtle, interesting dialogue always happens in this game, I find. And this creepy-ass salesman can just leave. Hey, neither of us have homes, dipshit. Thanks. Besides, I can't go back to my technical home because I'm not really a Kokiri child. Jeez. Insensitive jerk. Mario Mask. I don't know that all my masks are filled with happiness. And then he disappears! Ta-da! He was secretly a magician the whole time. And now here Tatl has some bitchy dialogue from what I remember. Not really bitchy, but, you know, subtly mean. Almost time for the carnival. Leave. The rest of us are going to the carnival. It's like, hey, you're not invited to the carnival. Get the hell out of here. Besides, it's not like you would want to go anyway, even if we did want to invite you. Just go away. Seriously. At least that's what I got from that. I know it's not what they were trying to say, but whatever. Aw, even Tatl can show emotion. Who'd have thought? Seriously, I thought she was terrible throughout the whole game. I mean, that's just me. And now for the end credits. Yes, thank you, Miyamoto, as always. And thank you, Aonuma, for all the awesome Zelda games you've helped make. Now make Majora's Mask 3DS, because I know you can hear me. And now in typical Nintendo fashion, we're going to see all the end credits and specific cutscenes from characters we've seen in the game. Or that's typical of Zelda. It's kind of typical of Nintendo in general, but more so Zelda. And from what I've heard, the more you keep track in your Bomber's Notebook, the more cutscenes you see, I think. But this only applies really towards more of the endings, and I'll point them out when we get there, but see some interesting views of all of Termina. And by the way, I would have put something in another song over the people playing, the Zora band playing, but I'm too lazy. I couldn't think of anything to put in. Not another Van Halen song. I guess until the really important parts that I want to show come up, I can go ahead and give my impressions of this game. I know I've said it like 100 times during this playthrough, but this really is one of my favorite games that I've ever played, and definitely my favorite Zelda game, just because in a lot of times I treat gameplay as I would treat a cinematic experience, because a lot of them kind of are in a way, and I think this one definitely is, because it really takes the time to, you know, develop a lot of characters, and it's not as big per se as like Ocarina of Time, but that's because they were more expansive and trying to make a big adventure. But here they really worked within the small space of Clocktown, and it really made you get involved with the characters, and the time limit also made you feel really enclosed. Hey, he's the running man now that he's not the mailman anymore. And their dancing still sucks. Oh, and the guard is still being a creeper, of course. But yeah, I've always really enjoyed this game. Ugh, great fairies. I find something different about it every time I play through it, which it's a sign of a really good game when it keeps you invested no matter how many times you play through it, and even when you think you know it inside and out, and I tend to think that I do about this game. There's still lots of things that end up surprising me, and I find out things about it that just make me like it even more. And I really do hope this game gets a 3DS launch, because, I mean, they saw how successful Ocarina of Time was. I think that people would be equally as excited for this one, just because it's Zelda. I oftentimes think that Zelda is a more beloved franchise for Nintendo than Mario, even. Real quick, I just gotta point out, Grog is the only person I know who can be surrounded by cuckoos and still be depressed as hell. It's like, if you were sitting in a barnyard with a bunch of chickens, wouldn't you not be able to help it but, like, crack a smile? I feel like I would, but whatever. So yeah, I really appreciated everything that this game, you know, put me through in a lot of ways. I even noticed these things when I was a kid, like I kept getting sad at certain parts, and really happy, and really scared, and really angry at certain parts. It's like, when a game can pull all those emotions from deep inside you, that's a sign of a really good game, and not a lot can attest to that. But Zelda games, on the whole, are usually really good about that, but this one is by far the best. Oh, Pamela and her dad. Yeah, now we're getting to the final scenes that really kind of are not really sad, but moving. And this is one of them. Yep, the wedding scene between Anju and Kafei. Love this scene, how regal it feels, the music fits it perfectly. Even for, like, a character in a video game, Anju still looks beautiful. And it's really interesting how you see it from Kafei's perspective. Like, even when he's an adult, you don't see him. It really kind of makes me tear up, or it did the first time I saw it, this scene, because of how beautiful it is. It really makes me feel good that I was able to help them. And of course, after a nice, beautiful scene, it's followed by a sad scene. Yeah, there are many theories that the Deku Butler's son is that, you know, statue that we first encountered in the game. And I believe it, especially with him kneeling over it at the end like that. So, yeah. Alright, Epona. Now that we're going through this shady forest again, be sure not to get scared by any fairies, okay? I don't want to have to go on another epic quest. At least not until I get to an island where I can start sailing. So yeah, those are my final thoughts. I had a hell of a time playing this LP. I always do when I play through this game, so with Link and Skull Kid waving, I as well will wave. You can't see me, but I'm doing it. That's a nice touch. So thank you all for watching my LP adventure. Until the next big LP, this is Interrupter Jones, signing out.